Dr. Bill Adams here, and this is No Spin Live, everybody's favorite show where they learn about hot topics in plastic surgery from the world's top plastic surgeons. We've got an incredible crew of experts with us today. We got Dr. Jason Pozner from Boca Raton, Florida. Dr. Dan Del Vecchio from Boston, Massachusetts. Sorry about the trade today from the Patriots DDV. We got Dr. Brad Calabrese from the home of the Kentucky Derby. And last but not least, Dr. Bruce Van Natta from Indianapolis. Guys, we got a great show, but we keep getting all these inquiries from the viewers from the comment last week about music that surgeons listen to in the operating room. So it's a hot topic. So Jason, what do you listen to?
We fight about it. That's the problem. We have the same team every single day. So we usually put on classic rock, and then my scrub nurse comes and changes it a little bit, and then someone else screams about it. So most of the time we listen to like classic rewind or classic vinyl, but every once in a while they sneak some stuff on us. What we don't like is when it starts getting into heavy metal stuff, we don't like that in the OR. It drives me a little crazy. Although for lipo cases, I like it a little more upbeat. Faces and boobs, I like it a little bit quieter. But mostly classic rock because we're all in our 50s.
DDV, what do you play in the operating room? And don't tell us it's like the Backstreet Boys or something.
A couple of things. First, Jason, I'm willing to contribute to your fund to lie down on the shrink couch to tell everyone why you like the music down when it's boobs. Maybe you like the lights down too. But seriously, I think it's like olfactory. It's like smells, like remind you of you smell a perfume when you're in high school and your amygdala gets stimulated. I think we're all old farts and we all listen to the music that we trained with, that was popular when we trained. So everyone listens to 80s and 90s rock and roll. My problem is anything I play these days is going to offend somebody. It's going to offend, this group, that group, the other group. So honestly, I don't play music anymore in my OR. That's a creepy answer, but I'm sticking with it.
Music?
No music. No music.
I do 70s and 80s music, and sometimes 90s. But I do a lot of Broadway because, I invest in Broadway. I'm involved in Broadway in New York. And so I spent 20 years questioning all my staff on, who got the Tony Award for that, who won that, what song is this, what show's it from, and those sort of things. So we play a little game with it, and it just keeps it kind of interesting because, we're in the operating room for 10 hours a day. And so, at some point in time, you just want to have something that's interesting, when you know the words to. And kind of like Dan said, it reminds us of something. So when you start listening to music, it sort of brings back certain emotions in you. And I think I find that mostly with Broadway. So, it's just who I am.
Bruce, what about you?
Well, so kind of boringly, pretty much 70s, 80s, 90s. But I do recall back before we had these PAL hand pieces, and liposuction was a lot more physical. Occasionally, if I was getting a little tired at the end of the day, I'd have them put ZZ Top on. And I mean, you can just keep the beat, da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. You can just keep your lipo going. And it kind of kept me going too, so.
What about you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm like DDV. I don't listen to music, and I use ether in the operating room. No, actually, we listen to everything. We listen to everything from classic rock to hip hop to even I let the nurses choose sometimes. So we sometimes listen to pop, country every once in a while. Everything. We got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about the FDA ALCL update, fake plastic surgery, and people are dying, and beauty matching and baby playtime. So let's get into it. This just came out last week. The FDA came out with an update to its stance on breast implant ALCL. Jason, there's been some media coverage. There's been things from our society. Lead us off on this one.
You know what? It really is just a continuum of what we've heard before. I really don't think that this FDA update really showed us anything new. It gave us a little bit more data as to the number of cases. It's still a very rare phenomena linked mostly to textured implants. Although what's interesting is they narrowed it down and they said in this update that there was some link to 30 smooth-walled implants that maybe have had a link to textured in the past. So I really don't know what to make of that. But bottom line is they said it's safe. The implants are safe. It's got to keep a close eye on these things. It's just really nothing new than we heard before. But again, you know what, in my practice, as I've said before on No Spin Live, I don't really like using textured implants. I'm a smooth guy, and I'll continue to use smooth implants until we figure out a little bit more of what's going on. But I see no problem with using textured implants in those cases that the docs think require textured implants.
I think this is a graded response by the FDA. If you recall, it was last March that they came out with the original document that mentioned the association. And I think this is just an annual kind of update. I agree with Jason. It didn't say really much. The numbers are slightly higher. As I said on the last ALCL kind of roundtable, I think this is just a slow motion event that is unfolding, and because we're in it, it doesn't seem like there's any major change at any given moment. But I think if you look at the big picture, I think it's just a slow, it's like glaciers in the ice age. It didn't happen overnight. I think there's just going to be a slow replacement of textured in most cases, and they'll be replaced with smooth. There'll be rare cases where people will use textured, where the clinical advantages are clear. But I think that's what's happening. We're just seeing some product replacement.
So Brad, you've done a lot of education on texture and things. I mean, what do you think about this update?
Yeah, well, the update, maybe what was new is that they did do a good job of talking about their database, the MAUD database, which mentioned those smooth implants, but then they also brought in our society's profile registry, which is probably more accurate. And we even have some new databases from some series of textured implants where we knew the denominator, which I know Bruce and I talked a lot about, where we're getting some better numbers. And so they did say that, for the more aggressively textured implants, there's some evidence that the incidence could be as much as 1 in a little bit less than 4,000, up to maybe 1 in 30,000. And that was probably new, that they were, it used to be 1 in 30,000 and 1 in 60,000, but they're seeing in some of the databases that we actually have a little higher frequency with that. I still think there's a place for textured implants, but I think that's still evolving. And one of our newest recommendations, which I think was important, is to say that when it doesn't matter whether you use smooth or textured, probably it's best to opt for a smooth implant at this point in time, but use texture in those cases when you think it really does matter. You can still use it, at least for now, and I think only time will tell. I'm chairing the Society's ALCL committee this year, and I think over this next year, hopefully we'll even get more data, more understanding, more research and science, so that we can make some better decisions for our patients.
Bruce, you've been active, really active in this for many years, so what do you think about the update, and what do you have to say about it?
Well, I would agree. I don't think there was anything exciting or worrisome or all that new. It was an update of numbers. It was interesting. I agree with Brad's point that they did acknowledge the incidence being what it appears to be, and that's a moving target. And again, we need to collect some more information on that. I think in terms of the use, what everyone said here, I agree with. I have a lot of friends who I respect who feel very strongly about needing to use these, and I think if we are just careful to try to eliminate the bacteria, that there shouldn't be a problem. I mean, I think clearly our understanding, which has evolved unbelievably quickly, thanks to the ASERF, the research fund for ASAPs, funding the research that Marshall Caden and Anand Diva have done. We've learned so much about this in such a short period of time. I mean, for a new disease entity that has occurred in our practice lifetime, I think it's amazing how quickly we're learning, but there's a lot to be learned. I would agree, though, that it doesn't sound like the FDA is alarmed here, which I think is appropriate, but we need to continue to collect data. So.
All right, well, let's move on to the next story. It comes from Down Under, actually sent to us from one of our colleagues down under, and it's entitled "Fake Doctors Ban Drugs, Risky Procedures Inside Australia's Backyard Beauty Clinics." So this is a very, I think, well done story. I enjoyed reading it and watching the video. They're hardcore. Our colleagues in Australia are hardcore. It's about cosmetic surgeons, people that have not had proper training or the same similar training that most people would expect of their surgeon. So Jason, lead us off on this whole thing. We've talked about this before, but it's a little bit different spin, and it's from another country.
Right. So, it's funny because I watched the video, and if it wasn't for the Australian accents, I thought they would be in Miami.
Right.
Just a little different accent,
right.
Because we got this 50 miles from here, the same stuff going on. Now at least it's kind of metastasized to another country right now. It's the same thing we've been going through in the U.S. for a while with illegal places doing illegal things because people think they're getting something cheaper or that they can't get. So they're having the same problems we are. Although I would say watching the video was interesting. If it was the U.S., they would have closed down those places much more rapidly than they did in Australia.
The storefront originally, they showed a picture. It looked very professional. So it's, you'd have to be really in the know to figure out that, at least on the front of it, it looked very legitimate.
Well, I just have a couple of comments quickly. The corporate practice of medicine is very easy to unwind. So if you create a corporation, call it XYZ Corporation, open up in a strip mall, and hire a vet to inject Botox into patients and do all the things, Bill, you said, which is to make the front end look and feel legitimate. You get caught, there are very few consequences. In most states, the practice of medicine without a license is like a $500 fine. I would imagine in Australia it's similar. It's not like, prison time. You don't go to jail for practicing medicine without a license. And the corporation just dissolves. It's an LLC. So nobody gets hurt in the long run except the patient. And then they pop up again in another strip mall. Jason, that's the problem we see with all the deaths in Florida with these boutique clinics. They just reopen up. So I don't agree that they crack down in the United States. It's really hard to crack down on these non-physicians. The physician is the only one who's really liable because they have a conscience and they have licenses that they have to hold. But corporations can just change the name and start again.
But these are like non-doctors and they're not under the same sort of requirements that we are. And that's what becomes the real problem. So I think the government ultimately has to step in at some point in time. I think they need to step in for a long, long time, even as it relates to physicians, because really all you need in most states is a license to practice medicine. And really you need no credentials in that particular specialty, especially in plastic surgery, to go ahead and hang your shingle and actually do these procedures with really no training, and which is very harmful. The problem is that, the minute we start talking about this, it looks like we're having like a turf war, that we're worried about people are invading our space. What we're really worried about is patient care and patient safety. We spent many years to assure that we're highly qualified to do these procedures. And the worst scenario is somebody with no medical training, but almost as bad as somebody with some legitimate training so they can at least put a degree that they're an MD on the door, but they actually have absolutely no training in the specialty, and they can cause as much harm as well too. So I think the problem isn't just in these types of pop-up clinics, but also in the ability for people to practice medicine outside of anything they've ever been trained in, and that can be very dangerous to patients.
Yeah, Bruce, I'm going to play the devil's advocate, and then I want you to respond. So what if I said okay, look, if this guy's a physician, he's an ER physician or he's an OB/GYN, maybe they didn't train for years in doing surgery, but they go to a weekend course, they learn how to do the procedure, they're a physician, they're very smart, they passed all their things in medical school, they should be allowed to do this. Don't you think?
Part of it depends on what we're talking about. I mean, if we're talking about injection of Botox, maybe even fillers, that's one thing. But then when you get into liposuction, augmentations, and so forth, it's where do you draw the line? And I think, in all honesty, for the government to get into trying to delineate who is properly trained and accredited is a real sticky wicket. And I think there's going to be problems because, it's the same kind of thing we fought with the American Academy of Cosmetic Surgery. And they say they're the real cosmetic surgeons. We're just reconstructive folks. And the government's going to have a hard time with that. There's going to be a lot of legal challenges. Here's what I think about this. I think this is an example of where, like this story in the media there, and we need more of this here. This is where some of the reality TV shows and things could actually do some really good for patient education. If you could show patients that just because it's cheaper and it's easy and whatever, you could get into a lot of trouble, that might actually serve to deter people and maybe encourage them to look a little more carefully at who they're going to for their procedures.
All right, well, let's move on to the last segment. This is on plastic surgery quick hits. So Bruce, I'm gonna start with you. So this thing, it's called beauty matching, and apparently a new trend that the couples, it's like date night is different. You come in with your significant other and you do Botox together or do some treatment together. I don't know, are you seeing this in your office?
Well, I'm sitting here in the heartland in Indianapolis, and those things take a little longer to catch up here. Probably the same for Brad. But no, I really haven't seen that. Now, we do see couples come in, and often it's that the wife maybe has had something, and now she brings her husband in and says, look at his eyes, he needs something done, or how about a little liposuction, whatever it may be. So we do see that, but doing it as a pair, it hadn't hit here yet.
Brad, what are you thinking? Are you seeing this in your office?
Well, we see it sometimes, and especially because we do hormonal therapy too and stuff. So, sometimes if you're gonna bump up somebody's hormones and make them a little randy and have everything working really well, I'm always saying you better have both partners involved. So they come in for hormones, and they'll do Botox together, simple things and fillers. We have a lot of couples that kind of come in together for that, and or friends, best friends that come in and do things together. For that, because I'll tell you what, when you're doing these procedures, it seems straightforward to us, but it's kind of nerve-wracking to them. So if they can have some support, and I think more and more men are becoming more comfortable with it.
Beauty matching big in Boston?
I don't think it's big anywhere, but I am seeing more couples. I just saw a couple from Canada who are both overweight, who both want lipo. Husband wants high def lipo, wife wants BBL. And I do agree with Brad that I think if you come in as a couple, it kind of helps ease the fear factor. The part that concerns me is if they both want surgery at the same time. That's a problem, because who's going to take care? So on the front end, it seems easier, but on the back end, it can be a disaster if you do this operation same day, because they want to go through the whole thing together, and then they end up both having surgery, and they're in a different city, and you're two people in a hotel room and nobody taking care of them. That's a nightmare. So I think we have to be careful about this. If it's a big operation, if it's something like fillers or Botox, that's cool, but big operations, we don't want to do them at the same time.
Usually the wife drags the husband in for something, but once in a while we get couples coming in. I did couples lipo, I guess last week, small volume body tight, women's abdomen, man's flanks under local. They went home with the caretaker for the night. It happens, but it's still not routine. We see a lot of, couples coming in here with support where one person gets the procedure and then the other member gets something done later. So it's common once they get to know you. It's, as you said, it's someone coming in and they said, oh, well, what about my eyes, after their wife or husband got something else done.
All right, so the last one was this thing got sent to us. It's called the Little Superstars Plastic Surgery Playset. So it's a plastic surgery playset for little kids to practice plastic surgery on each other. And they were like, what do you guys think about this? Jason?
I think it was a joke that was sent to me. One of my patients sent that to me, and I sent it to you. Look, I think that's totally fake, but it just shows you that if it was true, I think we're sending the wrong message to our kids. I mean, go outside and play baseball. Don't start pinning boobs on your 6-year-olds.
DDV, what age were you when you got your first plastic surgery playset?
Yeah, here's the deal. Plastic surgery. This is a compliment to plastic surgery. It's permeated childhood. And the second thing is, if it weren't for the operation game, I'd never be a surgeon. I was so good at getting that heart out without making the buzzer go off.
Yep.
These things have an impact on us when we're young.
It's becoming more common and more mainstay, and I think that when you start seeing it with kids playing it, like they played house and dolls, I don't know that I think it's any worse than we had every young girl in a kitchen cooking at 6 years old, like that was going to be their future, forward. I think that, these things that happen in childhood sort of guide the future. And I played operation all the time, and I may have been a little better than Dan at getting the little wishbone out of whatever without making the little buzzer go off and the little nose turn red. So So they do affect us in a little way. And I think that, there's nothing to be embarrassed with cosmetic procedures.
Were you good at the rider's cramp? The rider's cramp was tough, man. That was that was a tough.
I
one.
was playing Rock'em Sock'em Robot.
Bruce, this is not any plastic surgery playset. This is the Little Superstars plastic surgery playset, right?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, we can't get these kids started too young. I think it was the Jesuit said, "Give me the boy and I'll deliver the man." And so why not? Let's get them thinking about this at an early age. It's job security for us.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, listen, hey, those are some great insights. If you want to see more of these, you can see that on theplasticsurgerychannel.com.